Alright, let's see what Andres is up to today. Wait, what? E3 2018 predictions? It's kind of early for that. Oh, Pokemon and Metroid in 2018? You're delusional, man. Welcome everyone to my Nintendo E3 2018 predictions video. In this video, we will be going over basically everything I expect to see from Nintendo at this year's E3. And after that, I will be even going over when I expect to see these games actually coming out. So not only am I going to have predictions for E3, but even sort of like a release list predictions as well. And yeah, there may be some things that will be said during this video that some of you may find to be a bit too optimistic or crazy or even delusional. But please, hear me out, keep an open mind, and listen to what I have to say. I am going to explain my reasoning for each prediction, so it's not just straight, oh, I really want this game, so it's going to exist. No, I'm saying it because I think there's reasoning as to why it may actually be shown at Nintendo's E3 this year. So again, hear me out, but while you're listening, please put your own predictions in the comments below so we can sort of compare and contrast our own lists and then come back a few months from now once E3 is all said and done and see how close we actually were. Alright, so this is how this is going to work. I want you guys to like this video because, well, it'll just make me happy, but I'll also be applying a percentage to each of my predictions to sort of kind of tell you guys just how confident I am in these predictions and, you know, to kind of give you guys a better idea of what's going on in my head. Now, a few things I want you guys to also keep in mind, okay? Look at Nintendo's recent history, the way they've been operating. It's a little different from what it used to be. During the Wii U era, Nintendo changed around a lot of things. They combined their gaming divisions, their, handheld and console gaming division, to change around a lot of their philosophies, and we're seeing a lot of the fruits of those changes now with the Switch era. I want you guys to notice that a lot of big games have been announced, and they come out not too long afterwards. Look at Super Mario Odyssey, look at Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Those games were announced and titled in January 2017. Mario came out that following October, and Xenoblade came out that following December. And no one believed that Xenoblade would be coming out in the same year it was announced, but it did. And Nintendo didn't even need to release it in December, but they chose to. For whatever reason, they did. Okay, another great example, Smash Brothers. It literally was announced from like a week of this recording, and that game is also slated for this year. That's a major game. So just keep all this in mind, guys. A lot of this is going to be shaping my own predictions for this video. Another thing that's going to be shaping my predictions is Nintendo's presentation from last year. I look at the Spotlight event, and I noticed that Nintendo featured 15 games at the Spotlight event. 8 of those games were Nintendo-published games that all came out in 2017. 3 of those games were third-party games, and then the other 4 were also Nintendo-published games, but those games didn't come out in 2017. Most of them still have not even come out yet. So I don't think that the presentation this year is going to be exactly like the presentation from last year, but I do think it's going to be similar. It may not be as big. I mean, I understand that last year was the Nintendo Switch's first year. Nintendo probably really wanted to come out guns blazing with their E3 presentation and really woo everyone. But I think this year is arguably just as important, if not more so. If you look at sort of the history of console sales, it's usually the second year that sort of decides or, gives a good example of where that system is actually headed. The first year, at least within the launch window, a lot of consoles have started out really strong, but afterwards there's a bit of a drop-off. So it's Nintendo sort of may be using this year to really sort of change the pace for the Switch. It may pick up, it may go down. So I think this year's E3 is just as important as last year's. First prediction, Pokemon. Pokemon will be at Nintendo's E3 event. It will be revealed before E3 though. There will be a Pokemon Direct maybe around late April, early May, or even late May. Usually there is a Pokemon Direct shortly before E3 every single year, at least the years where Pokemon is actually coming out with a game. And interestingly, if you check Nintendo's sort of Japanese Direct site, the listing for the previous Pokemon Direct was taken off. And this has actually happened in the last 3 years. There's a pattern. Whenever the Pokemon Direct is taken off, usually a new Pokemon Direct is looming. So all signs are pointing towards a Pokemon reveal shortly before E3. I mean, there's tons of media coming out for Pokemon. There are silhouettes of different stuff that Pokemon dolls that could be perhaps suggesting new Pokemon. There's a big Pokemon movie. There are tons and tons of rumors. And on top of all of that, Nintendo literally has Pokemon Switch listed as 2018 or later, and it's been there for quite some time. So they have been aiming to get Pokemon out on Switch. I'm pretty confident this is going to be happening, guys. My confidence level is at 90%. We will see Pokemon featured at E3, even though it won't be revealed at E3. There's probably going to be 2 versions. I expect Pokemon to be coming out in November. The last few years, Pokemon has been coming out in November. I expect this year to be no different, and I can't wait to play Pokemon Switch this November around Black Friday time. Next prediction, Smash Brothers. Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo Switch, or maybe Smash 5, is going to be coming out this year for sure. It's already been confirmed for 2018, and it will definitely be featured at E3. It makes perfect sense. My confidence level on this is 99.999%. I am really confident in this one. I mean, literally, the game's already been announced and confirmed for 2018. It makes perfect sense, especially when you consider that the last few years Nintendo's been hosting a whole bunch of really cool sort of multiplayer competitive events at their E3s, and I expect this year to have Smash Brothers be the big multiplayer event. It makes way too much sense. Smash is the perfect fit for that. Now, when is Smash coming out? I believe it's going to be coming out in September. It could definitely come out in, say, October or early November. That also makes a lot of sense. But considering the Nintendo's launching their new paid online service in September, I think Smash Brothers is the perfect game to release alongside of it. It's going to fit it really well. We could finally get a Smash Brothers game that has actually good online, finally. It makes so much sense, guys. I'm really excited for Smash Bros. I can't wait to see it at E3. There'll probably be a few character reveals. Definitely we'll see gameplay by this time if we don't see it beforehand. I'm so hyped for this game. I can't wait. I know you guys are as well. Okay, so I'm going to throw you guys for a loop and go out of order and talk about third-party stuff right now. I think there's going to be slightly more third-party games featured at this Spotlight event as opposed to last year, not by a lot, but slightly more. There will be no indie or indie games featured at the Spotlight event. The last few years, Nintendo has not done that, so I expect the same this time around. They'll get their own sort of Spotlight before or afterwards. That's how it's going to work. Now, the games I think could be mentioned are, I'm going to talk about 3. One being Octopath Traveler. This game has been mentioned many times already. We know it's coming out late summer, but because E3 is going to be before summer, they're going to feature one more time to get a little bit more publicity and make a lot of sense. Hopefully the game does really well. My confidence level in this one is 95%. You should definitely check out Octopath Traveler. This is going to be a great game. I'm pretty confident in that. Now another game, now this one's a head-turner, Grand Theft Auto 5. This game, although it's been around for a few years already and on many platforms, it probably will be ported to the Nintendo Switch. There's been lots of talk about it, a lot of rumors. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, Rockstar ported over L.A. Noire last year. You know, that wasn't too bad, and I think there's a lot of money to be made by portable Grand Theft Auto. It's an old game, but I don't think it'll be really hard to get running on the system anyways. And despite that, you know, a lot of third-party games that are kind of high-profile, big graphical fidelity games are still coming out on the system, like Wolfenstein 2, Doom, and Dark Souls Remastered. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Grand Theft Auto 5 ported to Nintendo Switch, and it may be mentioned at this year's E3. My confidence level in this happening, 70%. Now, one more game that I think could be kind of crazy, but I think makes a lot of sense, is Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now, keep in mind, Beyond Good and Evil 2 we don't know what platforms it's coming to yet. It could come out for every single platform, may only come out for PlayStation and Xbox, we don't know yet. But before the game was even announced, when we had no actual real clue that the game was going to be announced, there were tons and tons of rumors coming out that Beyond Good and Evil 2 was coming to the Nintendo Switch, and some of those rumors even said it was going to be an exclusive. Now, I don't think Beyond Good and Evil is going to be an exclusive. That's a big budget game. It's going to, it's costing lots of money. Ubisoft probably wants that game to come out on multiple platforms to make as much money as possible. But I think considering Ubisoft's great relationship with Nintendo, the fact that the Switch is proving to actually get, pretty high-profile games, I think Beyond Good and Evil may be mentioned at this year's E3 and Nintendo's event. I'm pretty confident in that, and I would say I'm at about 75%. Yeah, 75% is where I'm going with this one. Okay, so now it's time to talk about some predictions for games that will not be coming out this year, but will still be featured at this year's E3. Like last year, Nintendo showed off 4 games that did not actually come out in 2017, so I expect something similar this time around. Not as many, but Nintendo will show a few games to sort of give people some hope and some expectation for beyond 2018. Now, one of those games that I think will be shown off is finally Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4, according to Shigeru Miyamoto, was near the end of development like in 2015, and now it's 2018, so I expect that game to be near completion, obviously. So I expect it to be shown off, but I do not expect it to come out this year. I expect it to be maybe a summer 2019 title, but it will see some mention, kind of like the way Kirby saw some mention last year and it came out around March. Pikmin could be something similar as well, so expect that game to maybe shown off. My confidence level in this one, well, I mean, actually the Pikmin thing is a little weird, so I'm going to place it at 60%. Now, another game that I expect to be shown off, Animal Crossing Switch. Animal Crossing is a franchise that's normally out pretty early on consoles, it just on pretty much any Nintendo gaming system, and the fans have been ravenous for an Animal Crossing update. Animal Crossing Mobile came out not too long ago. There's a lot of hype for that game. It makes so much sense. It should come out as soon as possible, and I get the feeling that Animal Crossing will be shown off this year. I mean, like I said, it's shown off pretty early on for pretty much every system. Animal Crossing will be coming to Switch pretty early. I expect Animal Crossing to be shown off at this year's E3, and maybe they'll say it's going to be an early 2019 title. And I think there's I put this at around a 70%. I think there's a 70% chance, at least in terms of my confidence, that this game will be shown at E3. Alright, one game that I think will not be shown off at E3 is Bayonetta 3. I think it makes a lot of sense in some sort of random ways. One, there's usually always that kind of game that we know is coming, but Nintendo just randomly decides to not show off, and people are going to be like, what? Why isn't this here? I think that game is going to be Bayonetta 3. I think Bayonetta 3 was shown off the last time at the Game Awards, and, you know, it raised a lot of excitement. I think that Nintendo's going to show it again at the Game Awards, and, you know, it's going to have its own highlight sort of event in December with the Game Awards. Again, a lot of Nintendo haters are going to get really upset again. I can't wait to see that again, and I expect Bayonetta 3 to be a 2019 title. That's where I expect to see it, and so that's why I don't think Nintendo's going to be showing it off that this year. What about Fire Emblem and Yoshi? We've heard about these games for a while already, but we haven't heard much about them since they were shown off for the first time. Does that mean they've been delayed or they've been canceled? I don't think so. I think just because Nintendo hasn't mentioned them doesn't really mean anything. Nintendo will mention it when they want to. If there's no need to announce it yet, then they're not going to announce it yet. I mean, I especially feel pretty good about Yoshi. I mean, even though it hasn't been shown off since last year's E3, I still think it's slated to come out this year. I mean, technically it was never actually given a date, but considering that Yoshi is usually not really that much of a big budget game, it's running on Unreal Engine 4, which should definitely expedite the development process. I expect this game to be coming out this year, and I expect to see it at E3. I'm thinking an August date. I think that's a good fit for it. Still like that summery sort of time, and it's also before the holiday season. And, you know, Yoshi's not necessarily the best game for the holiday season, but in that summery time, August, I think it still fits. So that's when I expect to see Yoshi come out. I expect to see it at E3. My confidence level in this one is at about 80%. That's where I want to put it. Now, what about Fire Emblem? Fire Emblem is, you know, a game that I would say is on it's bigger than Yoshi. It's a bigger game, bigger budget game. It has a larger fan base, I think, and people really want to know when this game is coming out. I mean, it's another example of, you know, the Switch sort of taking up a lot of the 3DS fans, because there are a lot of big Fire Emblem games there, and it looks like the Fire Emblem team will be moving on to the Switch. So when is this game coming out? It's slated for 2018, so I expect it to be coming out in 2018. And I also expect it to be featured at E3 since the game has not come out yet, which I thought it might have, but it hasn't. So then, yeah, where is it going to be? I think it's going to come out in December. I think December is a good date for it. It sort of hits that sort of Xenoblade 2 sort of spot, you know, that RPG sort of style. Similar fan base, not the same. And I think it's a good fit. My confidence in this one is also 80%. I think we will be seeing Fire Emblem at E3, and it'll be coming out this December. Breath of the Wild DLC got featured at last year's E3, and I think this time around we will be seeing Mario Odyssey DLC get featured, and it will be paid DLC. There was a lot of, there wasn't a lot, but there was some imagery before Mario Odyssey came out for Isle Delfino in the maps, and that was taken off by the time the game came out. I think Isle Delfino probably is going to be a part of some sort of DLC kingdom that will be announced hopefully pretty soon, maybe at E3 like I'm saying. I think there's a pretty good chance of it, and I think it would come out maybe July or August. There could be another DLC pack that will be coming out later on in the year with another new kingdom. It makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, they're going to want to make more money off Mario Odyssey. People are going to buy those DLC packs. So I expect to hear or something about Mario Odyssey DLC at this year's E3. I'm pretty confident about this one. I would put it at about 80%. Okay, so here are a couple smaller things that I think are going to be shown off at E3. One being Mario Tennis Aces. This game's already announced. We already have a date for it. It's coming out like really soon after E3, kind of like the way Arms was last year. So I think Mario Tennis Aces will get at least a brief glimpse at E3, and they may even announce like some sort of Mario Tennis Aces tournament at E3, the same way I think they'll do for Smash Brothers, the same way they did it last year for both Splatoon and Arms. It makes a lot of sense. I think this is going to happen. I'm pretty confident this one. I would put it at about 98%. Now, one more game that I think will be shown off that isn't that big of a deal to me, but it could be pretty good, is Mario Party. Mario Party is on every single Nintendo system. It would be weird to not see a Mario Party on the Nintendo Switch 2 years into its life cycle, so I think Mario Party will be announced at this year's E3. In terms of a timing as to when it will come out, I don't know, let's see. Well, Mario Tennis Aces is coming out in June. July is Octopath Traveler. So I would say, yeah, I think it'll come out in, July. Now, that could affect the sort of when Mario Odyssey DLC comes out, but, between August and July, I think that's a good window for Mario Party. Alright, so I need to be really careful about this one. This is my final prediction. And I can make an entire video about this one thing right here. So just, stay tuned. I'll probably have to make a whole video about this. But I think Metroid Prime 4 will be at this year's E3, and I think it will be coming out this year as well, in the October slot. My confidence level in this one isn't as high as the others. I'm going to put it at about 58%, but I think there's a pretty good chance we'll be seeing Metroid Prime 4. Now, I know a lot of you guys may be doubting this, because we didn't really see that much from Metroid Prime at last year's E3. But here's the thing, we did see something. We saw that Metroid Prime, we saw the logo, and I think that's a lot in and of itself, because consider this, guys, they're not going to show off gameplay at last year's E3 when they're focusing on games that are coming out that year. I think Metroid Prime may be actually be pretty close to the end of its development cycle for quite a few reasons. One, we've seen many listings suggesting that Bandai Namco is working on Metroid Prime 4 on the LinkedIn profiles. Eurogamer confirmed that Bandai Namco is working with Nintendo developing Metroid Prime 4. And if this is the case, keep in mind, if Eurogamer confirms it, it's not 100% necessarily true, but there's a very high likelihood that it is. If simply that's the case, that would mean there could very well be a huge team working on this. Not just the Nintendo guys, but the Bandai Namco guys. And with a huge team, you can get a lot done very quickly. Another thing to note is that Bandai Namco normally works with Unreal Engine 4, and if Unreal Engine 4 is the engine for Metroid Prime, guess what? They don't have to develop a whole new engine for it, which expedites the development process even more so. So that means the development cycle wouldn't be as large. But here's another interesting thing, guys. The lead designer for Metroid Prime Hunters is also apparently working on Metroid Prime, at least according to the LinkedIn profiles. And if this is the case, this implies that we may be seeing Hunters in Metroid Prime. It would also make sense since we know Silex, a Hunter, is going to have something to do with this game as well. So if that's the case, that could mean this game may have online multiplayer. And that would make sense in the sense that it could help Metroid Prime sell more in this era, because Metroid Prime has always sort of struggled, but having an online multiplayer sort of format in the game as well could help it to sell very well. And the thing is, if Bandai Namco's helping out, that doesn't necessarily take away from the awesomeness of the single player. That could be mostly what Nintendo's focusing on, what Bandai Namco sort of fleshes out the online multiplayer. I think there's a pretty good chance of that. And it makes sense considering that Nintendo is launching their online service this year. So Smash and an online multiplayer with Metroid could really fit really well. So I think it actually makes a lot of sense, guys. I think, a lot of people made assumptions about Metroid. We don't really know when development started for this game, but all the scientists suggested say that, it could be pretty far to development and it may not take as long as some people think. So don't be shocked to see Metroid Prime at this year's E3 and launching in October. I think October is a good date for it. I think now that Pokemon is going to be coming up probably almost every year on Switch, Nintendo is going to have another month for their big game for the holiday season. Last year we saw Mario Odyssey come out in October. This year we may be seeing Metroid Prime. I think there's a decent chance of this, guys. That's my biggest, craziest prediction. My confidence level for this one is at 58%. Yeah. Breaking it all down, there were 15 games that were featured at last year's E3 from Nintendo. This year, at least according to my predictions, there are 13 games that are going to be featured at Nintendo's event. 2 games less. Kind of like what I suggested, earlier on in this video, that it could be a comparable amount, but maybe slightly less. And here we go. So, if you look at the list, it does seem kind of crazy, but let's compare them, okay? So, from last year, we saw, from Nintendo's E3, FIFA, Rocket League, Skyrim, Breath of the Wild DLC, Pokken, Splatoon 2, ARMS, Yoshi, Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon, Kirby, Xenoblade 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and Fire Emblem Warriors. It's 15 games, a lot of them are pretty awesome. Now, let's look at what we're seeing for my predictions this year. Octopath Traveler, Grand Theft Auto 5, a port, Beyond Good and Evil 2, Super Mario Odyssey DLC, Yoshi, Fire Emblem, Super Smash Bros., Pokemon, Metroid Prime 4, Mario Tennis Aces, Pikmin 4, Animal Crossing, and Mario Party. So, in terms of numbers, it's not that crazy compared to last year. In terms of, new game announcements, technically, in my predictions video, there's only 3 games that are new. 2 of them coming out in 2019, the other one being Mario Party, which isn't a crazy prediction, right? The games that I'm talking about that coming out this year are games that are already announced. Metroid Prime 4 was announced last E3. Think about it. If it doesn't come out this year, that means there's a good chance that Metroid Prime 4 will see mention at 3 E3s. Do you really think that's likely, that Metroid Prime would be mentioned at 3 different E3s? I don't think so, and it's one of the reasons why I think Metroid Prime has a pretty good chance of coming out this year. Pokemon, same deal. Fire Emblem Yoshi, we know are coming. Yoshi's not even a big deal. Mario Odyssey DLC, not a crazy announcement. A Grand Theft Auto port, it's a port of a very old game. Octopath Traveler, we've already seen this game multiple times already. It's just going to get one more little glimpse at E3, I think. Beyond Good and Evil 2, yeah, that might be a little crazy, but that game was announced, and we don't know which platforms it's coming for, and third-party support has been getting better and better, and Nintendo has a great relationship with Ubisoft, so it's not that obscenely crazy. So I don't think my list is obscene. I don't think it's insane. It makes sense to me. I think it fits pretty well. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Show me your predictions as well, and let's compare, and tell me your reasonings for why you think these games may be shown when they're coming out. In terms of the release schedule, let's go over it, right? How I think it's going to pan out. So we already know Mario Tennis Aces is coming out in June. In July, we know Octopath Traveler is coming out, but it's not a Nintendo published game last time I checked. Actually, just a quick note. Octopath Traveler is being co-published by both Square Enix and Nintendo. So what could be coming out during that time? I think there's a good chance we could be seeing that Mario Party game at that time, maybe some Mario Odyssey DLC as well, and then after that, Yoshi in August. September is when Nintendo's online service comes out. I think Smash Bros. Will come out with it to really fully, showcase the online service. In October, I think could be a big game for Nintendo. I think it could be Metroid Prime 4. Metroid has historically not sold very well, but if this whole sort of online multiplayer thing is true, then Metroid Prime could sell really well, and it could be a good fit for October, and I hope the single player is just as amazing, if not more so. It could be really great, guys, if this is true. And then November, Pokemon. Pokemon has historically come out during this time in the previous years, so it could happen again. And then Fire Emblem, kind of like last year, could fit into that Xenoblade spot. If this is true, guys, this is going to be an insane year. It's going to be stacked and crazy, and it will make up for this port-infested first half of the year, I think. And let's say Metroid doesn't come out. Let's say Yoshi doesn't come out. Let's say we get Fire Emblem, Pokemon, and Smash Bros. In the second half of the year. That's still a pretty good year, I think. I think it's fantastic. So, regardless, I'm going to be excited, and I'm sure there's going to be some surprises, and I'm sure this list is not going to be 100% right. But we'll see. So again, guys, show me your predictions, like the video, let me know how you really appreciated, if you appreciated this predictions video, and yeah, guys, I can't wait to hear what you guys think, and I'll see you all really soon. Bye.